This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Pictou Power, Nova Scotia's energy operator, explores the possibility of 2 new power plants in Pictou County. Speaking out, a Nova Scotia woman shares her story of being the alleged victim of an historical sexual assault. And light rail, a study for the service in Cape Breton Regional Municipality, suggests it's a good idea.
Chilly temperatures for Saturday as our latest low pulls away. Quiet conditions ahead of our next system, which rolls in on Sunday. Your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening. Nova Scotia's energy operator visited Pictou County this week to talk to residents about a new power plant. The CBC's Taryn Grant was also there and reports on the mixed opinions from locals about the projects.
In the community of Salt Springs, residents poured into a fire hall this week to find out why their small community is being eyed for a big project.
I just wanted to learn more about it. I don't know anything about this particular project.
The proposal is to build 1, or possibly 2, fast-acting natural gas power plants in rural parts of Pictou County. The county already has a power plant, the coal-fired Trenton Generating Station. But coal plants are set to retire in the next 5 years as more wind and solar comes online. Those renewable sources need backups.
If we can get off of coal, of course, it would be good for the environment mainly, and hopefully offer some maybe more reliable power source.
It's going to create some jobs somewhere. It's got to create jobs somewhere. So that's a plus here because not many jobs being created here in this area.
A good idea for some, but other residents see nothing but drawbacks. Holly Irons lives about a kilometre from one of the proposed sites.
If I all of a sudden start not having enough water, I'd be very unhappy. I have beautiful water, and I grow gardens and fruit trees.
One of these power plants would use as much water as 750 households. The plan is to source it from deep underground aquifers. Iron's concern is that the plant will drain her and other nearby wells.
It would really interfere with my whole way of life.
Orchestrating the project is the new independent energy system operator. It says it picked the sites because they're close to a natural gas pipeline and major power lines.
Well, as you go through these projects, they're primarily implemented in rural Nova Scotia, and so it's a big change.
The IESO will contract the construction and operation out to a private developer. They've not yet been chosen. Long says if any wells run dry, the developer will help find a remedy. The assurance is little comfort to Irons, who says she'd rather see the plant built somewhere else. Taryn Grant, CBC News, Salt Springs.
Police in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick have charged a doctor with additional offences related to an ongoing investigation of sexual assaults at hospitals. Sanjeev Sirpal was charged in August by Cumberland County RCMP in connection with an alleged assault in a hospital emergency room. After reports from the public and a further investigation, police say he now faces 5 additional charges of sexual assault. The new charges are also associated to his work as a doctor in hospital emergency rooms. Sirpal's license was suspended in New Brunswick. It was also suspended in Quebec in 2022, and in August of this year, the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Nova Scotia said Sirpal does not hold a license to practice in Nova Scotia. The Nova Scotia Committee reviewing deaths in provincial correctional facilities has released its first report. It examined one recent death to learn lessons that may prevent similar tragedies. The person's name, age, and where they were located are not shared for privacy reasons. The committee made 17 recommendations to the Justice Minister. They include creating healthcare standards for people in custody and making sure medical records are properly shared.
In clinical medicine generally, we understand that, for a doctor or nurse to help you, they need to know as much as they can about you. Maybe you have a heart condition, maybe you have an allergy. They need to know that. And good information saves lives, and bad information takes lives.
The committee also says correctional services should update its policies for how evidence is handled around these deaths and consider having correctional officers wear body cameras. In the face of a projected record provincial deficit, the finance minister has asked government officials to look at the potential impacts of a 10% cut to discretionary spending and program grants. The last fiscal update showed the deficit on track to hit $1.2 billion.
What I can say is that we will be looking at impacts to most vulnerable Nova Scotians. We'll be looking at the impacts to frontline services. That being said, we know we need to cut spending. That's a reality.
Laura says final decisions about any cuts will have to come with the next provincial budget. Opposition MLA say the government is in a situation of its own making after years of over-budget spending. And Annapolis County is taking steps to try and help people whose wells are drying up due to the drought. The county has launched a temporary water relief program. It will offer water in boxes containing 4-litre bottles. Households can receive up to 4 bottles each day for each person, up to a maximum of 4 boxes each week. There is a limit of 1 pickup per week for every household. The boxes will be available while supplies last. The pickup locations and other details are on the county's website. And Ryan's here with our first quick look at the weather. What's going on, Ryan?
Yeah, well, Vern, not a bad weekend. Start to the weekend. Let's make sure we put that in there. Start to the weekend. Saturday is looking pretty solid. Now, that's in terms of the clouds, which we will see. Yes, some sun breaks in there across the mainland especially. Cape Breton a little cloudier than not. We will be looking at the chance for some showers and flurries there. Note the temperatures tomorrow, just 1, 2, 3 degrees. So really feeling the season, no question, as we are looking at those cool temperatures. Big warm up on Sunday, but wet and windy weather on the way into the double digits. A little bit of snow on the leading edge of this system that's going to be tracking in on Sunday. We've been talking about it over the last few days. There goes our latest low. The showers and flurries tapering off through late Saturday and through Cape Breton. And then here comes the system. And again, a bit of snow over northern areas of the province as this gets started on Sunday morning. And then we're over to the rain. We're over to the gusty winds. And yes, that will linger. This system will linger into Monday with some showers and flakes. We'll talk about it with your full 7-day forecast coming up, Vern.
Thanks, Ryan. We look forward to that.
Thank you.
A Nova Scotia woman is speaking out about sexual assault she says she suffered some 22 years ago when she was a child. The RCMP have charged 55-year-old Corey Fitzgerald White with historical sexual assaults they say happened in 2003 and 2004. The woman says it wasn't until she was an adult that she found the courage and support to come forward. She spoke to the CBC's Blair Rhodes.
The woman's identity is protected by a publication ban, so you'll only see her in silhouette in this interview. Here's some of what she had to say. And as you say, you put this out of your mind as a young person. It wasn't until you became an adult and was looking back that you realized that what had been done to you was inappropriate and wrong.
The environment in which I grew up as a child led me to feel like I didn't have a safe space to come forward. So it wasn't until I was an adult and felt like I was in a safe, secure place that I could come forward. And he was in my life my whole childhood too, so that is another element that makes it hard to be able to cope with things when you are a child, so you suppress them.
When the police issued the news release relating to your charges, they were quite clear that they believe there are more victims. And since that news release, I've learned from talking to the RCMP in Newfoundland that they have in fact charged him with 2 additional counts of sexual assault involving young people there. Does that surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me. The only thing that surprises me about it is that someone was willing to come forward and go to the police. A big part of it was anger, because when I came forward to everyone, including his wife and his children, no one believed me, and so I kind of put it to rest for a little while. And so seeing this, I was just really angry at those people. I was also angry at myself because why didn't I do more? I could have done more to stop this. I almost felt a little bit responsible that he was able to do that to another young person. Ever since then, it's just been like one day at a time.
What's it been like for you now that it's out in the open?
It's been a lot. It's been a lot of emotions. I feel very validated because I had people from all over Canada reach out to me to tell me that they believed me and that they were sorry about what happened. They tell me that I'm brave and that they're supporting me and they're here for me. And a lot of times other victims, for their own stories, their own people, not him, will reach out to me and tell me their stories. Other victims of his have reached out to me and told me in detail their stories. So While it's validating, it's also a lot of pressure to be a support system for other people. Anger is a huge feeling because I'm just angry at the people who I told a couple years ago and didn't do anything. I'm angry at the people that knew that he was like this because he's been doing this. The earliest case I know of, allegedly, is the early 90s. How is it that he's able to do this for so long? And why is it that he's had no repercussions for his actions? I was really angry about that. And just angry for the other victims because I understand how much this is going to change their lives.
We must point out that none of these allegations have been proven in court. The Nova Scotia charges are scheduled to be heard next week in Bridgewater. He's also facing 2 sexual assault charges for an alleged incident involving 2 teenage girls in Newfoundland. That case is due to be heard in December. Lev Rhodes, CBC News, Halifax.
A jury trial for Aaron Crawley, who is accused of first-degree murder in the death of Holly Boland, has been adjourned. Crawley is accused of killing the 30-year-old woman by hitting her with a car in October 2023. The two were longtime partners and shared 3 children. Crawley, who is now 35, was scheduled to stand trial in January. Justice Joshua Arnold granted the adjournment in Nova Scotia Supreme Court Thursday afternoon. Crawley was out on bail at the time of Boland's death and had been ordered to have no contact with her. Crawley was scheduled to stand another trial for another jury this month for some of his earlier charges. That trial has also been adjourned. No new dates have been set. The town of Lunenburg has decided to keep its electrical utility and make major investments in the coming years. Currently, Lunenburg has issues with its electrical capacity, and about $18 million in upgrades are needed over the
Traffic on the train tracks is not what it used to be in Cape Breton, but that could soon change if Cape Breton University has its way. A study has been completed looking at the possibility of light rail in the CBRM.
With the shape of the track and the cost to rehabilitate it, it's much, much cheaper than if we had to build a new railway.
The province has spent $610,000 on a study to look at the idea. Engineers and consultants say the first phase of the project could run from the Walmart in Sydney River to downtown Sydney and then out to the university.
It builds on the legacy of steel and coal. It was a federal railway, and so we would want to be able to, or whomever is chasing the dollars, to let the federal government know that this is a continuation of legacy dollars that were spent years ago.
The light rail transit would mostly use the existing rail line along the harbour, connecting to an old electric tramway that used to run along Grand Lake Road.
The rail expertise we got, they told me, they said, you don't realize how lucky you are in CBRM that you didn't tear up those rails. Because other jurisdictions that they're working on, Waterloo, Edmonton, have torn up the things and then had to spend a fortune to replace them.
Dan McDonald, who led the study for CBU, says it's now in the hands of the province and CBRM and whether they'd be interested in moving forward.
$250 million is a lot of money, and to do that means you need other government programs and leverage to do that. The study opens that dialogue.
Cecil Clark says he's already started talks with the provincial government and is excited by what the study could mean for the municipality.
It's a visionary, but we have to be practical about the budget sources, and those budget sources rely on the federal government as the core.
McIntyre says if the funding is available, light rail could be up and running in 3 years. Kyle Moore, CBC News, Sydney.
And we apologize for those technical difficulties. A live look at Dartmouth tonight. Ryan will be back next with the full weather forecast. See you in just a few minutes.
This weather update is brought to you in part by Atlantic Lottery's iGames. Play hundreds of games on the Atlantic Lottery app or at alc.ca.
Welcome to the news report today. My name is Blake, and here's your forecast. Degrees of 1 and cloudy and sunny. And on Saturday, the showers and flurries will continue for Cape Breton.
Fantastic job by Blake. And you may remember Blake. She, of course, became very famous in the province, Vern, when she appeared as a weather enthusiast for Halloween.
I remember it well.
And yes, she...
With her umbrella.
With her umbrella, that's right. So she made the trip into the station today, sat in with Tina this morning, kind of got behind the scenes of the radio forecasting, and then came into the weather center. We spent some time with her here. Fantastic. Just such a great personality, and obviously a weather enthusiast.
You got some competition on the horizon.
Well, you know what? I was joking with her that in a couple more years, maybe, if I need some backfill, right? So for some summer vacation, we're going to be calling on her. So Blake, thanks for coming in. You did such a great job, and I think we'll be seeing her in the future for sure. The future is bright for Blake.
And how's the future for us?
As she was explaining, Saturday looks pretty good. Sunday is looking a little unsettled, and so we'll dive into that in more detail now. Thanks so much, Vern. As we look at those temperatures, we've got 1 to 4 degrees out there right now, 5 in Canso and 7 at Sable Island. That is our provincial hotspot at the moment. There are the winds, which are sustained in the 20 kilometer per hour range for a good portion in and around that range anyway. Little bit stronger out towards Cape Breton and along that North Shore. And note those gusts, which have been howling along the North Shore today and across Cape Breton in the 50 to 60 kilometer per hour range. Now, looking at the weather systems map, we've been seeing some scattered showers and yes, flakes mixing in, especially this morning, but even into the afternoon, and some higher elevation snow coming down over the Cape Breton Highlands. That's going to be the case overnight tonight. And as we move throughout the day tomorrow, could see 5 to 10 centimeters over the Highlands. There's the low, which is going to be spinning up into Labrador, and we've got this cold air wrapping in on the other side of the system and then back into the west. This is our Sunday system, which is going to be, yes, primarily a rain-wind event, but maybe a little bit of snow on the leading edge of that one as well. Riding the jet stream, Canada is. From BC right through into the Great Lakes, there's that jet stream diving down. We're into the cold pocket now, but we will bump up our temperatures, as we said, for Sunday. So let's see how it all plays out. Temperatures tonight, 0 to -4. So one of the cooler nights we've seen kind of widespread with temperatures below the freezing mark for most of us. Northwest winds still gusting in Cape Breton, 40 to 50 through tonight. Winds will become lighter across the mainland, 10 to 20. And then as we, let's walk you through the timeline. So there are those kind of squalls that will be setting up. And there is a risk for squalls for Inverness County with some pretty, blustery conditions for Saturday morning and even into the afternoon. And that's why the Highlands could pick up, maybe 5 to 10 centimeters. Pretty quiet across the mainland, but I think that cloud is going to be kind of stubborn on Saturday. Some sunny breaks, yes, but not expecting wall-to-wall sunshine. Temperatures 3 to 5 degrees across Cape Breton, near 1 in the Highlands. Back into the mainland, 1 in Antigonish, 2, 3, 4 degrees at the warmest along the Atlantic coastline tomorrow. Widespread temperatures right near 1 to even the freezing mark. Near 2 or 3 in the metro area, and near 1, 2, 3 degrees in through the west as well. Sunday, back to the warmth, but typically if you're into the double digits this time of year, it's coming with the price tag of some gusty winds and some wet weather, and that's what we're going to be seeing on Sunday. And note, yes, I did add some flakes in through the icons here, and that's because on the leading edge of this system, it's arriving early enough on Sunday morning that we could see some slushy snow. Higher terrain areas, Cobequid Pass, the high terrain areas of the 104 highway, those are the most likely spots to see some of that wet snow early on. We're transitioning to rain throughout the morning, even in those areas. And then Sunday afternoon, it is wet, it is windy from the southeast. And then we're looking at a break into Sunday evening. Looking at Monday, it's showers and maybe a few flakes mixing in as well. Quick look at the winds on Sunday. looks like we're looking at widespread gusts near 50 to 60 kilometers per hour for most of the mainland. Stronger for the East Mainland and for Cape Breton, where we're looking at gusts 70 to 90. And I think Les Souette winds looking primed to gust 110, maybe 120 Sunday evening into the overnight. So it'll be definitely a gusty Les Souette setup there. Showers and flurries, as we said, on Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, hey, we might string 2, 3, 4 days together without a big system coming in, which it's been a while, Vern, because it's been pretty active. So we'll enjoy next week.
Good news. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
'19th century PEI boxer George Godfrey is already part of the PEI Sports Hall of Fame. But some boxing experts say his legacy needs to be remembered on a grander scale in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. CBC's Tony Davis explains.
There's a push to get a PEI boxer into that sport's International Hall of Fame. George Godfrey grew up in the community known as the Bog. He started boxing here in his youth, but his career kicked off when he moved to Boston.
He was small. He was about 5'10", 170, 175 pounds, which is small for a heavyweight. But he was very quickly got a reputation as being a very scientific boxer.
Godfrey won the World Colored Heavyweight Championship in 1883 and held that title for 5 years. But Morrison says history on black athletes wasn't tracked as well as white boxers at the time.
No, I don't think people do understand how good he was. I mean, some of his fights, like when he lost the title in 1888 to Peter Jackson, it was a 19-round fight, which is, today they only go 10 rounds.
Godfrey also challenged Boston boxing legend John L. Sullivan multiple times to a fight.
Many times called out Sullivan to fight to see who the real heavyweight champion was going to be. And Sullivan sometimes agreed, sometimes said he wouldn't fight, but they never did fight.
Godfrey's story has been inspirational for other Black Islanders. Well-known island musician Scott Parsons wrote a song about him.
Oh, he definitely meets the bar, yes. I think Godfrey does deserve to be in there. It's nice that these stories are being kept alive here in 2025.
Godfrey's already part of the PEI Sports Hall of Fame, and the people who run it say his legacy should get even more attention.
But his legacy is outstanding, and I think of that time, I think historically as much as anything else, he's a figure that I think deserves to be remembered and deserves this recognition.
Ballots for nominations were sent in on October 31st, and some boxing experts have already cast their votes for Godfrey. Who will enter the International Boxing Hall of Fame will be announced in December. Tony Davis, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Coming up, we'll take a stroll through Halifax's public gardens for a tour of the city's forgotten underground brook. More than a century ago, a brook that was part of the wetland Halifax is built on was buried in the name of progress. Today, its cultural and environmental impacts are commemorated in a project that is equal parts art and archaeology. Last month, the CBC's Alex Guy was given a tour of the city's forgotten watercourse.
There used to be a waterway that ran across most of the peninsula here in Halifax. It was called Freshwater Brook. However, it was covered over to support a lot of the growth in the population here. Today, we're going to actually take a walk along where that waterway used to be visible, right here in the heart of the city, and we have two guests who are going to take us there. Let's take a walk. All right, let's head in here.
Let's do it.
Where are we going?
I don't know. Where would you like to go?
Let's start with where the brook is,
Okay.
and then we'll go from there.
Archaeologist Jonathan Fowler and artist Kate Solar will be our guides along the path Freshwater Brook once took. We're starting at the public gardens where it had flowed into Griffin's Pond.
Well, this is one of the few places where we can still see the brook above ground. It originally ran from way up in the north end, right through the peninsula and down out into the harbor, down by Inglis and Barrington, that neighborhood. Practically all of it has been put in pipes by the Victorians underground, but there's only this one little spot where you can still see it, and it's in the public gardens.
Fowler says to support a growing population, major work to cover the brook happened between 1874 and 1888. But burying it wasn't exactly a permanent fix, especially during heavy rainfall.
When I'll speak about it in public or post something about it, sometimes people will say, that's why my basement floods, because they'll look at where their house is located and it's a former wetland. So there's a lot of awareness of something going on underground, but not always an awareness of, oh, that's what it is, Freshwater Brook.
I feel like this is going to make me start seeing the city in different ways, like thinking about that kind of concept.
There's a lot to see.
Yeah.
The more you know these early stories, the more the later city makes sense.
Where the brook snaked along the peninsula are signs from the public gardens to Victoria Park, where the brook would have run off to the left of the fountain.
The fountain, I don't think has any link to the brook, but it's still this
still something here.
Water source.
To a tannery in the South End, where the apartment building called The Views now sits.
In the 19th century, there were at least two different tanneries, which were places where animal hides were processed into leather. So this is a process that used a lot of water.
To a structure called Kissing Bridge.
Once we go down to the intersection down here, you hang a left on Victoria. You'll notice Victoria has a strange angle. It doesn't respect the grid pattern.
Yep.
Of course, it follows the brook.
There would have been a bridge near where the brook entered the harbor. It was called the Kissing Bridge for semi-unknown reasons, but possibly because it would have been somewhere like covert for couples to walk at night or for visiting sailors who were into, I don't know what they were getting
People were just
to.
meeting.
Yeah.
These signs are left over from Solar's project at Halifax's Nocturne Art Festival this year called Absent Currents. She wanted to create something about history interacting with the present, but it had to start with Fowler.
And he was immediately super into it and really liked the idea of there being a creative, some creative method to investigating a more emotional side of it.
No, it's part of our story. It's part of this place. And Halifax is so funny this way. We've got extensive areas of amnesia.
We are currently at the end of Barrington and Inglis streets, just off on the side street here. And just to the left of us is Pier 21, the Canadian Museum of Immigration, and the Seaport Market. And this is the location that Freshwater Brook actually would have met the Halifax Harbor.
And near where a small beach at the mouth of the brook had once been, Solar explains her project. On fabric dyed with materials found along the brook's path, she projected film and included contemporary footage and archival references to the path.
Because there aren't really any sources that really sit down and describe what the brook looks like, describe it in a lot of detail. It's just kind of in newspaper articles about other things or in people's accounts of other things, there'll be these sporadic mentions of the brook.
Solar says she hopes Absent Currents commemorates what had affected so many lives in centuries past.
There were a few people that were like, I've never heard of this before. And then there were other people who were like, it's so great you're making something about freshwater brook, like more people should be aware of it. Or that mentioned, that they had lived somewhere that had flooded because of the brook. So I think kind of everyone has a connection to it, whether they know it or not. And it was really interesting to talk to people about it at Nocturne and hear those connections.
Alex Guy, CBC News, South End, Halifax.
Coming up, Russia unleashed a wave of airstrikes across Ukraine's capital overnight, killing several people. And the U.S. is pressing the UN to authorize a temporary stabilization force in Gaza to protect civilians and secure aid routes. Welcome back. Ukraine has endured yet another night of Russian air attacks from drones and missiles. Several places were hit, but the capital was the main target. The CBC's Anna Cunningham reports.
These overnight attacks on Ukraine's capital were heavy. Russia pounding Kyiv with drones and missiles. Ukraine says 11 residential apartment blocks took direct hits and 9 regions of the capital had fires. President Volodymyr Zelensky has responded on social media saying this: once again, Russia has launched a heinous attack against Ukraine, our people and ordinary residential buildings. This was a deliberately calculated attack aimed at causing maximum harm to people and civilian infrastructure. Russia insists it does not target residential areas, but the cleanup paints a rather different picture in Kyiv, where residents are seen left dazed and shaken, the injured and the dead taken away by emergency services. Ukraine says it also carried out attacks on Russia overnight. This footage released by the Ukrainian Presidential Press Service reportedly showing the weapons used. These are long Neptune cruise missiles. Russia reporting damage said to be on the Black Sea port of Novorossiysk. Ukraine's allies have again met to discuss their support. Germany's Defence Minister Boris Pistorius hosting his British, French, Italian and Polish counterparts in Berlin. And today, Germany agreed to pay in euros the equivalent of some $245 million for weapons to Ukraine.
The threats against our nations and against Europe have only increased, with reckless drone incursions into Poland, Russian jets flying over Estonia, and NATO nations consulting through Article 4, not once but twice. As Russian aggression is growing, the war in Ukraine continues to rage, and the US has rightly challenged European nations to do more.
As the cleanup continues in Kyiv, there remains no evidence that this war is anywhere close to a peaceful resolution. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
In the Middle East, the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas continues to hold after 5 weeks. But phase 2 of the US brokered peace plan could have some hurdles to clear. The US is pressing the UN Security Council to authorize a temporary stabilization force in Gaza to protect civilians and secure aid routes. But the proposal is meeting strong resistance from Russia, China, and several Arab states. The CBC's Tom Parry reports from Jerusalem.
What the U.S. is looking for is for the United Nations Security Council to give its backing to Donald Trump's 20-point plan for Gaza. We've seen phase 1 of that plan in effect right now. The fighting, for the most part, has stopped in Gaza. Aid is getting in. Israeli hostages have been released. One of the last remaining deceased hostages, their remains were returned to Israel last night. Palestinian prisoners have been freed in return. Phase 2 of this agreement calls for Gaza to be demilitarized, for there to be a board of peace headed by Donald Trump to oversee a transitional government, and for an international stabilization force to go in and work with Palestinian police to provide security in Gaza. What the U.S. wants is the UN's legitimacy on this peace plan so that countries would be more willing to send troops as part of this international stabilization force. We've seen some countries mentioned, like Azerbaijan and Indonesia, but no one has put a firm offer on the table. So by getting the UN's backing, some more countries might come forward, but the fact is there are other complicating factors. Part of this peace deal calls for Hamas to put down its weapons, to disarm. Hamas has not done that. And so countries, even with a UN resolution, might still be reluctant to send their people into Gaza if they're going to come face to face with armed militants. Now, as the US is trying to get this through the Security Council, countries like Russia, China, some Arab countries are raising questions of their own. The Russians have put forward their own resolution, which they say is simpler and more unified, this while they're pursuing their own war in Ukraine. But what the U.S. says is that all these countries are really trying to do is sow discord. Tom Parry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Dozens of protesters are making their presence felt at the COP30 climate summit in Brazil. Our CBC News' team is on the ground where local indigenous people have blockaded the main entrance. They're demanding an end to development projects in the Amazon, like mining and logging. Susan Ormiston reports.
A face-off this morning just outside the COP venue in Belen. A long line of Indigenous people blocked the main road to the entrance to the venue. They were there since 5 a.m. this morning, standing ground, trying to get the delegates inside to listen to their concerns. They want more protection for Indigenous land in Brazil, also worried about any potential future oil drilling near the mouth of the Amazon River. They say they want more voice inside the big meetings called the plenaries here. A large other group of people was down the road here, civil society supporting the Indigenous people, and they forced the president of COP30 to come out of the building to speak with them. He spoke for a long time, and then, in quite a dramatic scene, he was escorted by the Indigenous people down this road, outside and over to a more secure area where they are having a dialogue.
There are more than 500 indigenous Brazilians in the delegation. So it's just that it's a group that we have to see how we integrate them better to the delegation.
Indigenous claims were always going to be part of COP30. It's partly why the Brazilian president brought these climate negotiations here. A larger march is planned for Belém tomorrow. Meanwhile, this is wrapping up the end of a first week here at COP30, where negotiators are digging into the very thorny issues of climate finance and how to find a path towards transitioning away from oil and gas, which is the promise they made 2 years ago in Dubai, but haven't yet found a plan to take that on. The conference will continue on into the weekend and then resume next week. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Belém, Brazil.
Canada's opioid crisis has killed tens of thousands, but advocates claim there were untapped solutions. Stephen D'Souza, co-host of The Fifth Estate, reveals how Health Canada ignored advice from its own experts, which some say could have saved lives.
For TJ Felix, every day brings the risk of death. A chronic drug user, they started using a dangerous mix of fentanyl and methamphetamine 2 years ago, after losing access to a safe alternative to the toxic street supply.
I was overdosing like upwards of twice a day.
Felix was a member of DULF, the Drug User Liberation Front. The Vancouver Compassion Club was co-founded by Jeremy Callicum in response to the rising number of opioid overdose deaths. In 2022, Health Canada denied their application for an exemption to federal drug law, so DULF bought illicit drugs on the dark web, tested, and then sold uncontaminated heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine to a select group of users.
People really just had no resources or way to keep themselves safe.
But in 2023, Callicum was arrested and charged with drug trafficking. Now a Fifth Estate investigation has found the same year DULF was shut down, Health Canada ignored recommendations from its own experts to expand access to more prescription opioids and stimulants, and for the government to consider legal and regulated compassion clubs and retail stores.
Disappointing, compromised, and just maintaining the status quo of which was thousands of people dying.
Last week, a BC court found DULF's founders guilty of drug trafficking. They're now fighting back, arguing drug users have a charter right to a safe supply.
We think there's a real constitutional issue here that needs to be addressed if we're ever going to get to the point where we don't have thousands of people dying every year from preventable deaths.
I can't stand the thought of my friends going to jail for this, for saving lives. I'd be dead 10 times over if it wasn't for them.
This past spring, federal funding for safe supply programs ended. Health Canada says it was just one of many options, and that they consulted with a number of others, including their expert advisory group. They also confirmed to the Fifth Estate no new federal money is coming for safe supply. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Toronto.
For years, scientists have been trying to solve a medical mystery: why rates of colorectal cancer are rising in young adults. But new research is pointing to a possible culprit: ultra-processed foods. Health reporter Lauren Pelly has the details.
It's fast, it's easy, but ultra-processed food might be a major health threat.
A new study published Thursday in a major cancer journal looked at 30,000 women over 2 decades. It found a link between eating a high level of ultra-processed foods and developing colorectal polyps.
And these are the kinds of polyps that we believe are the main precursor lesion to the vast majority of early onset colorectal cancers. And these are the kinds.
The lead researcher says the finding offers a key clue to what's behind an alarming trend, the rise in young adults developing colorectal cancer.
We did expect that there might be some associations here, given that we are also seeing dramatic increases in our consumption of ultra-processed food.
It's a big category of foods that are both highly processed and full of preservatives, items like mass-produced bread, many breakfast cereals, or instant soup.
So ultra-processed food is sort of that ready-to-eat, ready-to-heat type food.
This Toronto oncologist praised the new study and said these products have long been known as less healthy options.
They don't contain a lot of fiber, they have sort of the bad types of fats in them.
Still, this new finding isn't clear cause and effect. More research is needed to see where ultra-processed foods fit alongside other well-known cancer risk factors, like obesity and a lack of physical activity. Joshua Kluskovic hopes scientists figure it out. The 34-year-old doesn't know what caused his stage 4 colon cancer, which has spread to his liver, lungs, and bones.
You're trying to stay as positive as you can, just hoping for a miracle to happen.
After years of trying to lead a healthy lifestyle, he still has more questions than answers.
You think, what else could I have done? Why am I now getting this diagnosis?
Doctors and dietitians say one thing is clear: avoid ultra-processed foods as much as you can, and when possible, choose whole, fresh foods instead. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
2 days before the Grey Cup, CFL Commissioner Stuart Johnson delivered his annual address. He was enthusiastic about attendance and marketing strategies. There has been a lot of controversy surrounding announced rule changes, but even before he was asked any questions about the matter, he addressed accusations that Canadian football is being Americanized.
When we announced those rule changes, I did not do enough to emphasize something very important: our unwavering commitment to the Canadian game. So let me be clear. We are 3 downs, 12 players, unlimited motion, 65 yards wide, and huge end zones.
Winnipeg hosts this year's Grey Cup, and the festival is in full swing. Johnson denies suggestions the rule changes are being introduced because the league is interested in expanding to the U.S. He said any new franchises will be located in Canada. Canada's main stock index finished higher on Friday, helped by strength in the energy sector, while U.S. markets dipped lower. Let's take a look at the numbers as we head to break.
This weather update is brought to you in part by Atlantic Lottery's iGames. Play hundreds of games on the Atlantic Lottery app or at alc.ca.
Well, Ryan, I think we have a little bit of good news on the horizon, but I should keep my umbrella handy just in case. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, that's what I should tell you, yes, and that's what I am telling you and everybody. It's umbrellas handy on Sunday, though the winds are going to be pretty gusty, so I'm not really sure how...
As our little friend would have shown us at Halloween time.
Exactly, how beneficial they'll be. Sun, showers, perfect segue to our viewer picture of the day. Rainbows. Who doesn't like rainbows, Vern? Mark Doucette with a great picture. This is from Mason's Point at St. Margaret's Bay. And a big thanks to Mark for snapping this one. Ryan's Picks at cbc.ca. That's where to send your pictures, and lots of great ones this week, including of the Northern Lights. We had lots of great ones. Okay, so showers mixed with flurries will end this evening for most of the mainland, lingering maybe a little bit longer into tomorrow morning for the North Shore. And you can see all of that color there over top of Inverness County. That is, for the most part, going to be snow for higher terrain areas. Right along the coastline, likely warm enough that that's going to be coming down with a sloppy old rain-snow mix. Could see 5 to 10 centimeters across the highlands by the time we get to Saturday afternoon. That will finally taper off, and we're looking at some lingering showers and flakes. And then we've got our next system, which is going to roll in on Sunday. So there's Saturday. Note the temperatures very chilly, even for this time of year. And then the warm-up for Sunday. And we are looking at those double digits, but it will come with the price tag of that wet weather. Snow, if you're traveling to New Brunswick, looking at maybe 10 to 20 centimeters for the northwest of New Brunswick. Here in Nova Scotia, a few wet flakes early in the morning. On Sunday, possible over higher terrain areas, but we transition to rain. It's then the rain and the wind. And yes, the wind will linger into Monday with some showers and flakes that will wrap in on the back side of that system. We'll take our breath next week, Vern.
Quite the mix.
Yeah.
Well, the hunt is on for white truffle underway in northwestern Croatia. They're considered one of the world's most expensive delicacies. Available just 4 months a year. It takes at least a year to train each truffle hunting dog. That in part involves using truffle treats to make sure the dogs get to like the underground fungus.
But truffle hunters say climate change is becoming an increasing challenge since droughts stop truffles from growing and heavy rain can cause rot.
And that's it for us tonight. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Have a great weekend.